Meeting is being recorded. So,
Yes.
maybe since our topic is just too boring for that many people to show up.
Must be the good stuff then, right?
It used to be like we'd have record attendance whenever we talked about QBRs. And
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, QBRs again?
Yeah.
Well, let's watch the recording.
Been there, done that.
And oddly enough, this week is all about staying on topic.
Yeah.
My biggest struggle. So I've started moving into this new thing of being more consistent on message delivery. So like when we record these, which will be on our Wistia account, I'll put the synopsis in here so people can read up on how do you deliver QBRs? I need to figure out how to stay on topic, because inevitably what I hear about, and I don't know about you, is that people say, well, I get in there and then they want to talk about something else,
Yep.
and you don't actually get to talk about your meeting agenda.
Yep.
And so there is a trick to this, but it requires you being a bit of an asshole. But it works, and he's gonna hold to your guns.
You do.
Okay.
You do.
And I promise you it'll work out, unless you've got a really, really like if you got somebody in who's very strong willed in your meetings, it can cause you to butt heads a little bit. But what the what the trick is sticking to an agenda.
Yeah.
And so like tonight, I have a board meeting for a nonprofit, and we have 8 board members. And
Mhm.
some people have heard this story before, but it used to take us 4 to 6 hours to do a board meeting. The topic
Wow.
would meander, there were pet projects, there was all sorts of things going on. And then I instituted the 90-minute meeting. I said, we will be done at 90 minutes. If you need to have side conversations, they'll be after.
Yep.
And so I started doing that. And the first time I did it, people were like, they kept trying to get off topic. I said, nope, that's not for now. We'll table that for later.
Yeah.
And so we'll get to towards the end of the meeting. Just we're going to keep going here. If it's still important, bring it up then. And so by holding to the agenda, I was able to deliver actually what people were there to do. And then the next time I had a meeting, they were darn sure to get their topics back to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
because if they wanted to talk about something, it had to be on the agenda for the particular section of the meeting. Otherwise, it must not have been that important.
Yep.
And I've been doing this for 3 years with this board, and we have gotten so much done. We have
Yeah.
accomplished so much. It's been
Well,
great.
and
So
that
when
really
people
helps
look
us
forward
out.
to the meeting, my meeting attendance is actually higher now, because people
Yeah.
aren't like the first excuse they get, they're not leaving the meeting.
Right. And that really helps us out as well. I mean, as we put that agenda together, it gives us an idea of a very well, not an idea. It gives us a very specific list of things we need to talk about, and we can be realistic about that. If we've scheduled a 1 hour meeting and we're looking over this, and we've got 3 or 4 things, and we know that each one's going to take 20 minutes. Well, we can't talk. We can't have 4 things on the item if they're all going to be 20 minutes, and we got a 60-minute meeting. So it forces us to prioritize, to focus on what's really important, and do the right kind of prep work. When I talk with people, and we're working on the platform, we're doing different things, everyone's willing to put the time in. I mean, I haven't really, it's nice. I like our members. There's no lazy schlobs out there, right? Well, we're always looking to be more efficient, but there's nobody going, I just really don't want to do the work. All right. People are willing to do the work, but if we don't have an agenda, then the work is not as productive as it could be. So by making yourself follow this process, create an agenda, and then develop the information that supports that agenda, you're going to be much more on point, much more focused, and your work, your prep work, is much, much more effective.
Yeah, and I just want to show people what I'm referring to here, or what we are referring to. I do my fancy screen share today. So, like, People need to realize that Adam Walter is not a task oriented person. I am not your checklist guy. My wife, however, if there were a list of things that made you happy, lists would be on that list. That's from Big Bang Theory the other night. We both laughed for like 5 minutes after Sheldon said that in the show. I am not somebody who just like goes down through and checks a list. However, I've had to force myself to be that way over my career because there is value to it.
Yeah.
And I will meander everywhere. And Skip will even call me out on our weekly meetings of getting into the weeds, and it makes my rating go down. But the idea here is that you have to have something here, and so I have created a checklist. I have created this. Skip has created this, and we follow this as a general construct of what to run in a meeting. And if you do this, you will stay on topic, and therefore you will make more money and you will be more successful. This will allow you to sell more. So I talked about this a couple weeks ago in one of our meetings, but this is how you stay on topic. It's how you keep them from talking about that most recent problem with their printer. But what if that comes up? What if somebody say, hey, I'd really like to talk about that problem we had with that ticket. Like, hey, I'm happy to talk to you about that after this meeting. We have some really important things to cover, and let's IDS that after we're done here. And so you mark it down, put it down here. Like in there's a reason why we have that. There's a reason why we have that fluid section down here. So talk about printer. And that becomes an agenda item, but not agenda item, but it becomes a note so they know that you haven't forgotten about that. You put a pin in it. You're going to talk about it after the meeting. But today, what we need to talk about in this quarterly meeting or this monthly meeting you're having, I've got agendas for both, is we need to talk about what happened last quarter, so we can update everything and keep everybody on task. And then we're going to talk about next quarter, and you got your list of things you want to talk about on your project roadmap. So you focus on your project roadmap, you make sure this is all updated, and then you can move into approving. Everybody's good with that. And then you can assign action plans to individuals and conclude. When you've concluded at the point of this bookend, you walk out of the room or you do something else. You segue so that you're not stuck there for 3 hours chit-chatting.
Well, now, so an important part here, like the bullet point that he's got there, talk about the printer. All right. I totally get this. Okay. You got my sympathies on this. All right. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg deal. All right. So here's where we have to get, and it may be a bumpy meeting or two early on. Okay. All right. So there's the setup on it. Where we need to be is we need to have specific engagements with their clients. All right. These things about printers or access or new monitors or whatever, those are a big part of what we do. I mean, we're not going to ignore those things, but we need a specific place for them. So one of the engagements you need to be having with your clients should be centered around this operational, tactical, technical sort of stuff. Our QBRs need to be a little bit higher up the cognitive level. All right. Maybe that's a bad way to say it, but we need to be thinking about things more than we are doing about things. We need to be making sure that we're aligning the organization so it's going to be best positioned to execute on the company's strategy. So by having separate specific types of engagements, you're going to be able to shuffle these things out. Somebody brings this up. They're like, yes, we can talk about that printer issue. That's going to be tomorrow at 10 in our technical call. All right. And you set the expectation that, yes, those are important. They're so important. We have a very specific place for them so that we can talk about them. All right. And getting in that groove, like I said, the first time or two you go through this may be a bit bumpy, but shortly, very, very shortly thereafter, your clients are going to come to understand, oh, I've got this call every Tuesday at 10, and we talk about these things. I can count on that. I know I can be there and things will get done if I bring it up in that Tuesday 10 o'clock call.
Yep.
So set expectations both for yourself going into this with the agenda, but also be prepared to set expectations for your clients where these conversations need to fall.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is people like habits, people like consistency, and people will fall in line behind the strongest personality or the most consistency they have. This is just us as creatures. So if you set this expectation, yes, the first couple meetings, as Skip said, will be a little bumpy as they get used to the new habits. They're used to just meandering the conversation and having their way with you. But when you say, hey, we're starting this humanized IT process where we have to stay on task. And if it's like a true emergency, like, hey, servers are down and things need to be fixed right now, like, hey, we're going to not have our QBR meeting today. Instead, we're going to fix this, but can we reschedule this for another time? They say, yes. Okay, then reschedule it.
Yep.
Don't bastardize this meeting into some convoluted mess. Have this agenda, cover this agenda in an uninterrupted hour, and handle your operations outside of it. If you cannot do that, you are not a strategic shop. You are an operational shop.
Yeah. Oh, so
Sorry,
let me
that's
call
the
you
way
out here.
life works.
And not you, Adam. Anybody watching this? All right, let me call you out. Either the things you put on this agenda are important or they're not. All right. If they're important, we need to talk about them. We need some structure around them. We need to be intentional about them. If they're not important, yeah, we can just throw them in a bag of things we'll talk about whenever.
Yep.
But
so
if they're important, make an agenda. Be intentional. Set an engagement.
I've been talking to my kids a lot about this lately. Like they're in junior high and they're trying to figure out who they are in life and blah, blah, blah. And they're getting lost and they, have all these questions about where are they at in life, what are they going to be when they grow up, but they don't know how to ask those things. So what are their priorities? Well, the priority is whatever's in front of them right now.
Yeah.
And that's normal kid behavior. When you're in elementary school, the priority is whatever the moment is. So as we grow, we establish priorities in our lives. And so right now I have my kids writing up what are their top 5 priorities in life. It's family, friends, faith, whatever it is. I need you to write down the order. And so I want them to do that on their own, figure out if their own priority is candy, then yay. But your actions in life reflect your priorities. You have what you want your priorities to be and what you can say your priorities are. But when you do actions, that's how you know what your actual priorities with your client are. So with this client, what are the priorities of this meeting? The priorities of this meeting are to cover the objectives for the quarter. And so you can see that very clearly in the meeting agenda. We don't have anything else on there. We just have last quarter, this quarter, get approval. So that action right here is the number one priority. And if you are spending your time talking about, operations, that's your number one priority, operations. If your number one priority is strategy, then that will be what you default to. That will be what you do in a meeting. You will default to your number one priority. And so what is your priority in this meeting? Is it to fix things today? Or is it to create an engagement where you're doing meaningful activities for your client? And so, well, can it be both? Well, yes, but it becomes a number one, number two. So is your priority to be a strategic engagement that fixes things for your client in a meaningful way? Or is it something where you want to fix things and if you have time, do it in a meaningful way?
Yeah.
What is your priority there? See how that kind of flips really quickly? But you have to be deliberate about it. Otherwise, you're going to be what we call operations. You're going to be like the elementary kids, like whatever the moment is what's important. Whereas the strategic person says, I set priority, I follow the priority, and I reflect it in my life. Thus, why we have the 3 questions you ask. What's been going well? What hasn't been going well? What can we do better? It all comes down to priorities so that you can say, this is what we want to have happen. And so with your client, what is their number one priority? Usually to make money. How are we going to do that? Let's talk about it in a strategic meeting. Okay, what about that broken printer? Doesn't seem so important right now. It's annoying and it needs to be taken care of. But because you have your priorities straight, everything is clear. Now you can move forward. So that, like just with my kids, if they have their priority list and they get a little lost in life, they can look back at their priority list and think, oh man, I was definitely putting games above my family. And now my sister's mad at me. because I forgot her birthday. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, this is life. And so now you know how to fix it because you reprioritize. With your client, man, we're always in operations. We're always in firefighting mode. I don't understand why. It's because you made that a priority. Make strategy a priority. You can say, "Oh crap, I need to be deliberately talking about strategy. I need to be staying on topic because this is the most important thing to me. The strategy is the most important thing to me, and so therefore I will reflect it in meetings." So that's your lesson for today. How do you stay on topic? Is prioritizing meeting agenda and what you want out of this meeting. And sticking to it. So that when a client says, "Hey, I need to talk about my printer," you say, "Hey, that's not high priority on our agenda. I acknowledge that that's good. I'm going to put it down in my notes here that we will talk about this. I'll set up a separate meeting for it if it's something big. If it's something small, like I'll talk to you after this meeting." Those
Yep.
are your segues. If you do that, you are going to have a world changing experience. You're
Yeah.
going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that easy." And your client's going to realize that this person who runs this meeting is a hard ass when it comes to their meeting and they're respectful of your time. So that means that no matter what happens, you have to start on time and end on time.
Yep.
Even if the CEO isn't in the room, you don't wait for him. You start.
Yep.
And that sounds horrible, but that's the way the world works. If I, Adam Walter, am invited to one of your meetings and I show up 10 minutes late, which I do routinely, you start without me.
Yeah.
And when I get there, I will realize that I missed 10 minutes of the meeting. And that's on me. And so you keep going through the meeting agenda and you work through it. And you know, the next time we're like, "Oh crap, if I don't get there on time, they're gonna start without me."
Yep.
And so that's, you know, we even do that in these meetings, is that we start about 5 minutes late. Just because it takes people a little while to get in sometimes. Sometimes you click on the link and you don't quite get there. So we allow a little grace period here. Um, but when it comes to your clients, you gotta redo this. I do this with my clients, I do this with my boards, I do this anywhere I run a meeting. I I start this on time and I end on time to be respectful of everybody's time. That way you fit everything in. And then next time people know, like, you know, I'm gonna wait to ask my question about the printer until after the meeting.
Yep.
"Hey, while you're here, can you look at this printer?" We all hate that phrase, but
Uh-huh.
at least it
Well,
doesn't happen in the middle of the meeting. At least you got your
yep.
project plan completed, so you can go back to the office and say, "Hey, we sold $10,000 worth of projects for next quarter. Let's get those rolling." Versus going back to your office and saying, "Hey, we got to fix this person's printer. What about those projects? Oh, I didn't get to talk about them. We didn't have time."
Yes. Yeah, and that's the problem. And a couple of, and to Adam's point again, I mean, you do have to kind of be hard on this, but it does get easier once you develop this rhythm, your cadence. Once you're able to communicate clear expectations to your clients, then this does get easier, and you don't have to be so hard, and your clients aren't going to be trying to bring up as many things out of order. So getting it started is harder. Keeping it on track is easier, but you have to stick with it. So I think going forward, it's just as hard to keep ourselves on track here as it is to keep our clients on track
Yep.
in these. Once we get in these grooves, once we get comfortable with it. So kind of buckle up and maybe get yourself psyched up for that first one or two meetings that they could be a little more challenging, but there is some good times coming after that as you're able to get in a groove with your clients.
For those of you who need to segue into this with like an older client, use the phrase, "Hey, we're starting this new humanized process, and part
Yeah.
of this to help us increase value to you is to keep our meetings on track. So what I'm going to do next meeting is I'm going to follow this agenda, copy and paste what I have, and put in an email. Say, if there's anything that's important to you that you would like to talk to about in this meeting, please send me the information at least an hour before the meeting so I can include it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, anything that comes up, we'll talk about after the meeting." And use that, use us as the punching bag, saying, "Hey, you're following a new process that's been shown to help clients succeed with their technology." And so follow through on that. And then you're going to find out that, well, nope, we're not on topic. We got to move on. Um, Man, you'll find out that this works.
Yep.
It does. I've
Well,
been
and
in 20
think about
people,
this,
and I know how to
especially
run a terrible meeting, and I know how to run a successful meeting. And then we received feedback from MSPs that started doing this that didn't believe me, and they did it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that that was different. That was awesome." And then your clients respect you more, and you're going to find out the CEO is going to be more likely to come into the meeting because he doesn't feel like his time was wasted on operational items, because CEOs don't care about operational items, they care about strategic items. If you stick to
That
the agenda,
CEO
you're going to
part,
see them pop in.
yeah, that CEO part is really important. So those of you listening in on this, that own, or you're the principal at your business, at your MSP. Think about this. Someone schedules an hour on your calendar, all right, and you're good with that. It's something that needs to be discussed, but that 1 hour turns into 3 hours. And so now, what started at 9 and you were going to work on this and get a couple of things done before lunch has completely erased your entire morning. So, when this cycle comes back around again, you're hesitant to engage with this. As an owner, you may be looking around at your team going, who else can I push into this black hole so that I can stay on track for my day? All right. Now, flip that over, and your clients, they fall into that same pattern. But again, bumpy starts aside, if you're able to stick with this respecting of people's time and staying on track, your clients are going to recognize, hey, this is a valuable meeting, this is important, and it's only going to take an hour. I need to do this. I can get in this, I can rearrange my schedule, and I can get in this meeting so we can figure out what we need to do here.
Yep. And so just to conclude, stick to an agenda. You can have your own agenda if you want, and you will make money. You will increase client engagement. Follow through on this, and you will see that your time isn't wasted, their time isn't wasted, and everybody's happier. It may just take 2 meetings to set this new kind of role. But again, like as an owner of a company, if I come to one of your meetings and it just meanders, I will not be back. I will send Skip. And so that's how you attract an owner. That's how you get
Yeah.
valuable people in your conversations, is you provide a valuable content that's predictable. Like they can look at this agenda and say, oh, this is where I need to be. This is what we're going to do. And yeah, say Mike just messaged us.
Yeah.
Yeah, agenda works. This isn't an agenda that I created as a pilot guide. This is one that we use with other clients. This is one I have used in the corporate world. This is one that I have used to talk to my own clients. And this is one that many of you MSPs out there have used. I've actually adjusted this since the first draft because there were a couple things in there that just didn't work quite right. But this works. This will sell projects because they'll respect you. And that's just where I wanted to leave everybody off at.
Yeah.
Is that
Here's the great thing about this. Adam, help me out in on that agenda. If you will help us out here, can you drive back to your screen there? So if you see a problem with this agenda, something that doesn't line up with you, Adam, if you'll click there, anywhere on that.
There we go.
Just change it. All right. So here's the deal. I mean, if this doesn't work for you, if you need to change the timing on this, if you want to reorganize it, if you want to, come up with your own, that's fine. What we're saying here is not that our agenda is perfect, is that agendas are important. All right. And what they do is important for how these meetings are going to come off. So very, very important that you spend some time to prep this and make these agendas valuable.
Yep. And it's that simple. Most things in the humanized IT process do not involve you making and investing a ton of time. Yeah. It's just about simply making little tweaks to your already existing tempo to make this successful. Yeah, we talked about that a little earlier, Mike. We talked about sharing the agenda in advance, getting feedback. Is there anything you want to have on here? Because then you set it. And here's the fun thing: the almost everybody, at least in North America, has been preconditioned to follow an agenda, because we used to call them syllabuses and rubrics. No
Uh,
one argues with a teacher about what they're going to talk about that day. You just sit and listen, and you just kind of along for the ride. Ask a question, you answer. People are preconditioned to follow these things. Send it out ahead of time. This is what we're going to do. And people are like, is this part of the brain that locks in and step and goes, oh, okay. That 10th grader inside of them goes, I know how to do this. And they come in and they feel good about themselves. And then like you walk in there and you knock it out of the park with, hey, we did really great things last quarter. We exceeded expectations. Next quarter, we have this really great idea that we should expand your storage, or we should implement this new licensing that will make things so much better for Zoom for you. Would you like to do that? Get approval from them. Say, yes, we want to do that. Go ahead and get that installed by July. And then boom, you're forward. You're moving. And everybody's happy. They're already preconditioned to go through this. Just take advantage of that so that you can have successful meetings. And that's all I have to say about that. Meeting agendas work. If you want a really cool tool to use with this, 90.io is out there for you traction people. It is extremely useful for internal conversations. If you do not believe that a meeting agenda is worthwhile, try 90.io at your company for 1 quarter.
Yeah.
And come back to me and tell me it was worthless. Holy crap. We get so much done now. There's accountability. There's all these fun things that keep us on track. Your meetings are only an hour a week, and you get so much done because there's no time to talk about anything else. Everything else happens in elevator conversations.
Yep.
The important stuff is for meetings. And that's what I want you guys to do here. Try this. As Mike just chimed in and said, it works. Do it with your clients and start making money today. All right.
There you go.
Thank you very, very much for coming on. Excuse me. Man, still got that cough going. Thanks for coming on today, Skip. I look forward to seeing everybody next week. I don't have my agenda up here, so I don't know what we're talking about next week, but
we will have an agenda. You'll see it.
It's all that's this week. It's a free week for me.
All right.
I will be making more of these videos like my background next week, everyone. So if you're watching this in December, as a recording, you'll probably see some of my new backgrounds from my Grand Canyon trip and trip to Telluride, Colorado. It's gonna be glorious. I'm going to be up at 9,000 feet, and then I'm going to go on to the desert. So I might see snow and desert in the same day. It's going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. All right. We'll see everybody. Well, I'll see you guys all in 2 weeks, and Skip will see you next week.
Yep. Stay tuned. See y'all.